Hi.
This is so weird. I was thinking, all right, welcome Afterglow, everybody. I was thinking about this. This is going to sound really strange, but I bet the best thing about being, one of the funnest things about being a serial killer or a kidnapper
Oh, you're just trying to get my attention.
is doing the ransom note.
What?
Doing the ransom note. You know how they cut things out of magazines? It's like a word search. So think if you have something you want to say, right? You're like, hold in little Miss Pigtails, and if you want to keep her on the Harvard track, then you need to give me $500,000. But you got to find all those words.
Well, where are you going to find them now? Newspapers hardly exist anymore.
I know, but that would have been
Magazines.
super fun. This is why I was thinking of that. I was thinking of that because I like the written form, passing notes, taking pictures, all things that were kind of like our thing growing up, right? That seems normal and earnest and like you're not putting it on. But to do a video seems like you're Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, you know, like you've got to get your eyelashes on and a big inflated suit. And you've got to have like Jesus horns decorating the background to call in the rapture. And it's like, anytime it's video, it's like, I don't think I'm...
Faye moments.
Tammy Faye moments. Where's your eyelashes? But it is like that. It's
Shoot,
like...
I knew I forgot something.
It's definitely... It's a medium...
You cut?
Cut. She needs eyelashes. We really wanted to do this video just because we wanted to stretch ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit. We know that that this is a medium, either audio or video or both, that a lot of people receive information from and they learn by, and it's different than sitting down and carving out the time to read a book or a long post and stuff like that. So this is in part us getting out of our comfort zone. So welcome to our other little secret location. It's in Colorado and we're tucked up in the mountains. And we're spending the summer here, spending time with our family and
Friends, deer, bear,
bugs.
yeah, bugs.
We're checking in with Brianna every week to 2 weeks, and we tell her every time we see a wild animal, we think it's her thinking of us. So for those of you that don't know, Brianna is somewhat of a local Dominican girl that really attached to us, and her dad is probably in an area that we're all familiar with, but
we get to be there for Brianna, and we get to enjoy her.
Yep,
So
it's kind of like having a kid away from home that we get to hang out with. So we've been having a good time checking in with her, and she's excited for our return to the Dominican Republic, as are we.
And all the American toys we're bringing back.
And games, board games. So we put out a call for questions because we don't really know, that you're out there and we've got our little thing going and this is the life we're living. We're trying to bounce between Colorado and the DR, and I'm trying to show you that, that's possible sober, and we're trying to show you that it's possible within a bioethanol sort of, Tammy being a moderate drinker type situation, that we can grow and build and do something that's totally different and not have it be within the confines of alcohol being an attachment at all. So that's just the life we're living. Afterglow is sort of an invitation for other people to do that as well, but we really don't know what it is that piques your interest. For a handful of you, it'll be coming out for a visit. Some of it is early sobriety stuff. A lot of us are parked well into our years of living this sober lifestyle. But it just so happened when I did the podcast for Present and Sober, both Ellie, as she interviewed me, and your questions when we put out a call in response to doing questions for us, a lot of them were relationship oriented and relationship based, which not only in the podcast caught me by surprise.
Right.
If you've listened to it, you're kind of hearing me Elmer Fudd it a little bit, like, oh, how do I go down this? Because we don't feel like experts as much as, or or even seasoned as much as we're very grateful that we just really like each other. And so maybe a lot of the answers that we give you for the questions that you asked are going to be, what makes a likable partner and how do you navigate the certain, roadblocks that you guys might have mentioned. So the very first question was, how did we meet? And so since Tammy tells this story like I'm Terry Crews on the white horse in an Old Spice commercial or something, like we had
the cowboy hat. You were
just pulling up with my 8-pack. I'll let her tell you how we met, and then I'll elaborate a little bit as to where I was in my alcohol dependence area, because that's a part that didn't shine as much as she'll probably tell from what she saw on the outside.
Yeah, so the way we met was my son was working for Jeff's uncle. And for 2 weeks, my son had been asking me to go to a 4th of July party that his boss, which is Jeff's uncle, puts on every year. And for 2 weeks, I said no. I was too busy with my career, had too much going on at work, although I wanted to spend time with my son. So the day before, I gave in, and we went and got a bunch of stuff for taco salad. And I went to Marvin's party with my son. And Jeff's brother-in-law, well, let me back up. So I seen Jeff playing horseshoes, and he was so smiley, so bright, so happy. I'm like, oh, that guy's totally married. Cute, but totally married. So a few moments later, Jeff's brother-in-law approaches me, and he talks to me all day. Good into, from what time we get there, like noon to 6 p.m. He's talking to me. And I asked him, are you married? And he said, yes, that's my wife right there and my daughter. And so I got to meet them. And then he's like, but hold on. And then he went and got Jeff. Brought Jeff back to the picnic table I was sitting at. I'm going to cry. And we sat there, we talked for 3 to 4 hours straight. And I wasn't looking for a relationship, but this guy had stolen my thoughts. Like, I was totally into our conversation. We had so much in common, so much we agreed upon. So yeah, I was suckered in by the cowboy hat, the bald head, and the beautiful smile, and then the great conversation.
So we did. This was 4th of July back in 2011. And the backstory of my alcohol use is that on that July 4th, I was 1 day away from getting my license suspended for probably a year. And so I had somewhat of a downward spiral in the 2 years prior to meeting Tammy, and that would be divorce in 2008, 2009, and then a 2-year sort of relegation to self-pity and lack of any sort of accountability when it came to my alcohol abuse. And so I was coming off a 2-year stint that ended in a bad DUI, had some physical complications from a prior issue. And so what she saw on July 4th of 2011 and my smiliness and my general, hospitable openness was me, but it was also my last hurrah of, boy, I'm going to be relegated to my house, to my responsibilities, and trying to figure out how life works. So
you needed a sober driver at that time.
I did.
Someone with a license.
Yeah. Totally. A day later after meeting Tammy, I was going to need a driver. However, after we spent about 3 to 4 hours talking on this picnic bench, we watched fireworks. It started getting noisy around the fireworks, so I'd kind of nuzzle up to her a little bit. And, I think I wrote in the book that I was kind of relishing her presence by kind of coming underneath her neck and speaking to her in her ear, and which for form and function, she did need to hear me, and I would learn later how long she is partially deaf. So
And you're a lot closer to my ear than my eyes.
there
so.
you go. It had to be under your neck. So I remember feeling at the end of that night like, damn it, I just met someone. We totally clicked. We had all of this common energy around our kids, our hopes for them, our baggage, our despair. I mean, it was just easy. It was, we were firing off, and it was beautiful. And I remember at the end of the night when her son pulled her away from that barbecue, just going, well, that's that, because I knew my consequences of being what I considered to be a total loser the next day, losing my license, having to function. I was just not, like her, interested in having a relationship at all. So shortly after she had left and her son pulled her away, her son's friend ran up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, dude, you're not very good at this. Do you want to give her your number? And I was like, yeah, like, of course it would have been rude to say no, but I had no intentions of carrying that moment any further. And so through some hodgepodgery of me not knowing how to date or how to even bear my vulnerabilities of being in trouble, because I felt like I always was supposed to have my ducks in a row to be good enough to be a potential suitor for someone else. We ended up exchanging numbers, and I still had that mentality that I wasn't going to pursue anything until
Until I called you.
Yep.
Was it 2 days later, right?
I think it was a solid week.
A week?
Yeah.
And you were playing baseball with Nathan?
Yeah, a week went by. I was playing baseball with Nathan out in the cul-de-sac, and she had called me, and Nathan, I hung up the phone, and Nathan said, who is that? And I said, you remember Tower Barbie from the party? Barbie's like chic now, but Tower Barbie was a pretty good moniker back then. I said that was her, and he's like, ooh, you gonna call her? And he was kind of like, I was like, I don't know. And here's like a good take-home lesson for you guys indulging our story in the first question. I had gotten a therapist strictly for when it came time to have my hearing for my DUI. I had gotten a therapist that would write the customary note that says Jeff is tracking towards betterment. I wasn't interested in quitting alcohol because of my consequences, but I was interested in having some sort of a crutch to stand by my side and represent me in court so that I would get in less trouble and have less jail time. So I had this therapist come over that night. Remember, I couldn't drive, so she made a house call. And all I could really talk to her about was Tammy. And I remember, telling her, look, I'm such a loser. I'm going to go through all these consequences. I got the DUI. I'm not going to be able to drive and meet her for a date. And she just goes, Jeff, do you realize all the different ways you told me that you're not worthy of happiness? I was like, I think she charged like $135 an hour. I would pay 10 times that for that advice. And she said, here's the thing. If you think you deserve happiness and you think you've found somebody who you can bear your vulnerabilities to, not just letting her see the good stuff, but also the bad stuff, then you be completely open, completely honest, and trust her with it. If she can't handle it, she's not for you. And so I called her that night. I told her about the DUI. I told her I would love to date her, but there, in no uncertain terms could I meet her or court her in a way that would be more traditional.
How cute you said court.
Court.
Go ahead, sorry.
But she was such a floozy. She came right to my doorstep. So, so really that conversation, that night when I called her, we just picked up where we left off. And not only did we have the initial spark of us talking, now we were automatically deeper in trusting each other. And even though I was able to selectively tell her I had a DUI, I didn't go into incriminating detail, but I just wanted to let her know that, hey, I had this misstep, and I was going to be under some consequences. And we fixed our first date, and our date was a meeting point, and we spent 6 months solid together after that. I mean, and what I mean by that is that she had a contract that was terminated. She was coming out from North Denver. I lived in South Denver. So she, after work, was coming over to my place. We were getting to know each other. But when her contract terminated, she was very interested in learning my business. And that coincided perfectly with me needing to get to my business, some of the driving responsibilities. And we spent 24 hours a day with each other, business, living, Nathan, her getting to know Nathan. And it was just, I don't know if any of you watch Love Island, and they say that days in there are like a week or 2 weeks or a month, and you get to know each other fast. I mean, we spent 100% of our time together, and we had so many commonalities and so many life ambitions. We weren't interested in having crushed souls or baggage. We were interested in releasing it and moving on. We both felt that that was possible. And we hit the ground running, and it's been 10 years plus since that moment. And
then that takes me back to the question of, if something arises in our relationship that is a concern for either one of us, right?
Yeah.
So when Jeff told me what he was going through, it told me a lot about him, that he was trustworthy, because he trusted me with that truth. So it made me feel like he became vulnerable, but also trusted me. Trust is huge and hard to come by. And so then in turn, I felt like I could give my trust back to him by relaying things and telling him things. And then that so in my beliefs, I believe that if a couple has a problem in their relationship, the thing you do with this is you communicate honestly and freely with your truth to the other person. But you have to be able to trust that other person's going to listen, try to understand. But your goal in that conversation is not to badger each other. Your goal in that conversation is to come up with a solution together to fix whatever is going on. If you're not able to be honest and communicate with that other person, what it does is it builds up resistance in you, and you push that other person away. So it helped me see that this Jeff was capable of maybe going that way with me and be able to do that with me in the relationship. And that's how if we have something that comes up that bothers either one of us, we sit down, or tell each other the honest truth. Mm-hmm. And then we listen, we let the other person say whatever it is that's going on. Listen, try to understand from their point of view, and come up with a solution.
Yeah. And that's been a learning process for me, being able to share my truth, because I had, decades prior where I definitely grew up in an area where you're supposed to be seen, not heard. You kind of stuff your emotions. My first marriage, I was married at the age of 18 through the age of 35, 36, so 16 years. And also in that situation, sharing my truth never resulted in any sort of change or comfort. And so I just learned to stuff and bury my truth, or be a chameleon and conform. Even if I didn't like a certain social structure or a certain thing, I would conform and be that, because it was easier to be contrary and share my truth. So, I mean, I remember one of the first times Tammy and I talked about something. I don't remember what it was, but she could tell something was on my mind, and I didn't want to share it. And yeah, you poked me a little bit, like, go ahead, it's you're safe. And I was like, I don't remember what it was. It was trivial, but to me it was a big deal, because if I shared it, she didn't like it, it would be, it just to me would not be worth laying myself bare. And so I've learned over time that I can trust her with my truth. I had to eventually learn to trust her with the truth of my alcoholism. And I knew by going through 4 or 5 years of being safe with her that once enough was enough for me in my drinking, I knew that she was the first person that I could share what a struggle it was. So.
Yes.